The guns have fallen silent. Great warships lie at anchor as shadows of their former glory, while white ensigns that once commanded every ocean now fly over a fleet no longer feared as the undisputed master of the seas. The Royal Navy that carried the British Empire across the globe has surrendered its unrivaled dominance. Yet this same fleet once protected the world's busiest trade routes, defeated history's greatest maritime rivals, pioneered naval innovation, and projected British power to every continent. How did one of history's greatest militaries end up like this? To understand how it all ended, we must return to where it began. For more than 4 centuries, one navy stood between Britain and invasion, connected continents through the world's oceans, and shaped the destiny of an empire on which the sun was said never to set. Yet the greatest naval force in history did not disappear in a single catastrophic battle. Instead, it slowly yielded its dominance to changing technology, shifting global power, and a world that no longer rewarded the very supremacy it had spent centuries building. How did a small island kingdom create a fleet so powerful that entire nations feared its sails before they appeared on the horizon? And how did that same navy surrender its position at the top without ever suffering a decisive defeat at sea? This is the extraordinary story of the Royal Navy, its uncertain beginnings, its rise to become the world's greatest maritime power, and the remarkable legacy it left behind. Throughout its history, one truth remained constant. Mastery of the sea was never simply about ships. It was about survival, commerce, and power. Long before Britain ruled the waves, England struggled simply to defend its own shores. Medieval kings possessed ships, but not a permanent navy. When war threatened, they assembled temporary fleets from merchant vessels and private ships, only to disband them once peace returned. Across Europe, kingdoms fought for territory, while the seas remained dangerous highways dominated by merchants, pirates, and rival powers. England's geography made this vulnerability impossible to ignore. Surrounded by water, every invasion would come by sea. The Norman conquest of 1066 had proven that lesson beyond any doubt. Whoever controlled the English Channel could shape England's future. Everything changed during the reign of King Henry VIII. Recognizing that temporary fleets could no longer protect an increasingly ambitious kingdom, Henry invested heavily in purpose-built warships during the early 16th century. Magnificent vessels such as the Mary Rose represented more than military strength. They embodied a revolutionary idea. England would maintain a professional navy in times of peace as well as war. It was an expensive gamble. Building a permanent fleet demanded enormous resources. Vast forests of oak, iron, rope, canvas, and thousands of skilled craftsmen. Dockyards at Portsmouth, Woolwich, and Deptford expanded rapidly, creating an industrial foundation unlike anything England had previously attempted. But ships alone could not build a great navy. Storms claimed vessels as often as enemy cannon. Disease killed thousands of sailors before battles were ever fought. Pay was unreliable, food was poor, and life aboard cramped wooden ships demanded extraordinary endurance. Yet those hardships forged something even more valuable than warships. Generations of experienced seamen whose skill, discipline, and resilience could not easily be matched by rival nations. By the close of the 16th century, England possessed something increasingly rare, a growing professional naval tradition. Its fleet remained smaller than those of many European rivals, but it was becoming faster, better disciplined, and more capable with every passing decade. Few realized that these modest beginnings were laying the foundation for a force that would one day dominate nearly every major ocean on Earth. That transformation accelerated dramatically in 1588, when King Philip II of Spain launched the mighty Spanish Armada to invade England. Spain possessed the world's greatest empire, immense wealth from the Americas, and a fleet many believed to be unstoppable. Against it stood an English navy led by experienced commanders, including Lord Charles Howard and Sir Francis Drake. The stakes could not have been higher. If the Armada succeeded, England faced not only invasion, but the possible end of its independence. Instead of relying on traditional boarding tactics, English captains exploited faster, more maneuverable ships, superior long-range cannon, and aggressive seamanship. They harassed the Armada relentlessly, refusing to fight on Spain's terms. Combined with fierce Atlantic storms, these tactics scattered the Spanish fleet and shattered its invasion plans. England celebrated its survival. The rest of Europe witnessed something even more important. Naval warfare itself had changed. Victory did not immediately make England ruler of the seas, but it transformed confidence into ambition. Over the following century, the Navy expanded steadily as England evolved into Great Britain with the 1707 union with Scotland. Maritime power became inseparable from Britain's identity and future. Success at sea demanded more than courageous captains. It required an organization capable of sustaining a growing fleet. The Admiralty improved logistics, dockyards expanded, and naval officers increasingly earned promotion through demonstrated ability rather than noble birth alone. Advances in navigation, ship design, and administration allowed Britain to build and maintain fleets more efficiently than many of its rivals. The 17th and 18th centuries became an almost continuous struggle for maritime supremacy. 3 Anglo-Dutch Wars tested Britain's commercial ambitions against another great seafaring nation. Victory was never guaranteed, but each conflict strengthened Britain's naval experience, refined its tactics, and exposed weaknesses that demanded improvement. Those hard-earned lessons prepared Britain for an even greater challenge. France. As European rivalries spread across North America, the Caribbean, Africa, and India, control of the oceans became as important as victories on land. Ships carried soldiers, food, weapons, trade goods, and communication across vast distances. Lose command of the sea, and entire armies, and even colonies could be isolated within months. The 7 Years' War, fought between 1756 and 1763, proved that reality on an unprecedented scale. British naval victories disrupted French supply lines, protected merchant convoys, and enabled military campaigns across multiple continents simultaneously. Often called the first truly global war, it demonstrated that sea power could determine the outcome of conflicts fought thousands of miles apart. Meanwhile, the fleet itself continued to evolve. Powerful ships of the line carried more than 100 guns, while copper sheathing protected hulls from marine growth, allowing vessels to sail faster and remain at sea longer than many competitors. By the late 18th century, the Royal Navy employed tens of thousands of sailors and officers, supported by one of the largest logistical networks ever assembled. Its growing dominance rested on far more than larger ships or heavier guns. It was built upon disciplined crews, relentless training, industrial capacity, financial strength, and generations of experience earned through constant warfare. Britain was no longer simply defending an island. It was building a maritime empire, and its greatest test was still to come. By the early 19th century, the Royal Navy had become something the world had never seen before. A military force whose influence stretched across every major ocean. No empire in history had depended so completely on maritime power, and no navy had mastered it so thoroughly. Britain's greatest weapon was not simply its fleet. It was the ability to appear almost anywhere on Earth with overwhelming force. That supremacy was put to its greatest test in 1805 at the Battle of Trafalgar. Facing the combined fleets of France and Spain, Admiral Horatio Nelson abandoned conventional tactics in favor of a bold and dangerous plan. Instead of fighting parallel lines, he split the enemy formation into isolated segments, risking everything for a decisive victory. As British ships advanced, they endured heavy enemy fire before they could respond. When Nelson's columns finally broke through the Allied line, the battle erupted into chaos. Superior training, disciplined gunnery, and relentless seamanship quickly turned the tide. By day's end, the Royal Navy had destroyed or captured 22 enemy ships without losing a single British vessel. Nelson did not live to witness the full significance of his victory. Mortally wounded during the battle, he died knowing Britain had secured command of the seas. Napoleon would never again seriously challenge British naval supremacy. The consequences reached far beyond Europe. While armies marched across continents, British merchant convoys crossed oceans under Royal Navy protection. Trade flourished. Raw materials flowed into British factories. Manufactured goods flowed outward, and colonies remained connected by secure sea lanes. The Industrial Revolution and naval dominance reinforced one another, each making the other stronger. By the height of the Victorian era, the Royal Navy had become the very symbol of Britain's global power. More than 400 warships served on distant stations from Gibraltar to Singapore, from Halifax to Hong Kong. The empire eventually governed nearly a quarter of the world's land and population, with maritime routes serving as its lifelines. Supporting that global reach was an extraordinary industrial machine. Portsmouth, Chatham, Devonport, and other dockyards operated like cities, employing thousands of shipwrights, engineers, blacksmiths, sailmakers, and craftsmen. Innovation accelerated continuously. Steam engines supplemented sail. Iron gradually replaced wood. Rifled naval guns extended engagement distances, while advances in navigation allowed fleets to operate with unprecedented precision. The Royal Navy also developed one of history's greatest logistical networks. Coal depots, supply stations, repair facilities, and overseas bases enabled British warships to remain deployed almost indefinitely. While many nations struggled to support fleets beyond their own shores, Britain had built a truly global maritime infrastructure. Perhaps its greatest achievement was one that never appeared on a battlefield: deterrence. Rival powers often chose not to fight because they doubted victory was possible. Diplomatic negotiations unfolded beneath the unspoken reality that the Royal Navy could blockade ports, protect allies, or strike distant targets with remarkable speed. Its reputation alone shaped international politics. That confidence became official policy. Britain adopted the famous two-power standard, maintaining a navy at least equal to the combined strength of the world's next two largest fleets. It was an extraordinary commitment requiring enormous investment, yet Parliament viewed it as essential. Sea power protected trade. Trade generated wealth. Wealth financed the fleet. For generations, the cycle reinforced itself. To millions around the world, British warships symbolized order, commerce, and security. To others, they represented imperial domination and colonial expansion. Both views reflected the same undeniable reality. The Royal Navy had become far more than a military institution. It was the foundation upon which the British Empire rested. Yet history has a way of challenging every dominant power. The larger the system became, the more expensive it was to maintain, the more responsibilities it assumed, and the more determined its rivals became to challenge it. The first cracks did not appear in defeat. They appeared in success. Maintaining global supremacy demanded staggering resources. Every technological breakthrough forced another costly round of modernization. Wooden sailing ships gave way to ironclads. Ironclads became steel battleships. Steam replaced sail. Coal-fueled engines before oil emerged as the next strategic necessity. Each revolution rendered portions of the existing fleet obsolete almost overnight. In 1906, Britain launched HMS Dreadnought, a warship so advanced that it instantly made nearly every battleship in the world, including many British ones, obsolete. It was a masterpiece of engineering and a symbol of British innovation. But it also triggered an international naval arms race unlike anything the world had seen before. Germany responded rapidly under Kaiser Wilhelm II, investing heavily in a modern high-seas fleet. For the first time in generations, Britain faced a rival determined not merely to challenge its interests overseas, but to contest control of nearby waters. Shipyards worked relentlessly on both sides as steel, money, and industrial capacity poured into increasingly powerful fleets. At the same time, Britain's responsibilities continued to expand across an empire spanning every inhabited continent. Protecting thousands of miles of coastline, countless shipping routes, and hundreds of ports required dispersing forces across the globe. The very size that had once symbolized unmatched strength was becoming an increasing strategic burden. Then came the First World War. The Royal Navy entered the conflict as the world's largest fleet, and although it successfully blockaded Germany and maintained command of the seas, the war exposed a changing reality. Naval supremacy could no longer be measured by battleships alone. The Battle of Jutland in 1916, the largest naval battle of the war, demonstrated both the power and the limitations of the great fleets. While Britain maintained strategic control of the North Sea, the battle produced no decisive knockout blow. The age of decisive battleship engagements was already beginning to fade. Meanwhile, a far more dangerous threat emerged beneath the surface. German U-boats attacked merchant shipping with devastating effectiveness, threatening the very supply lines upon which Britain depended. Naval mines turned familiar waters into deadly hazards, while aircraft hinted at a future in which command of the sea would depend as much on the skies as on the surface fleet. Victory in 1918 came at an enormous cost. Britain emerged on the winning side, but exhausted. National debt soared, public support for endless military spending declined, and other powers, particularly the United States and Japan, continued expanding their own naval strength. International treaties sought to limit battleship construction, recognizing that no nation could indefinitely sustain such an expensive competition. The Royal Navy remained the world's premier fleet, but its margin of superiority was steadily narrowing. Technological change was accelerating faster than strategic assumptions. Economic realities challenged imperial commitments, while new rivals possessed growing industrial power. Britain still ruled the seas, but for the first time in centuries, that dominance no longer seemed guaranteed. The Royal Navy did not collapse in a single battle or disappear beneath the waves. Its decline unfolded over decades, shaped by forces no fleet, however powerful, could completely overcome. The greatest maritime empire in history was ultimately challenged not by one enemy, but by the changing nature of power itself. The Second World War demonstrated both the Royal Navy's extraordinary resilience and its growing vulnerability. Once again, Britain depended upon the sea for survival. German U-boats prowled the Atlantic, seeking to sever the supply lines carrying food, fuel, weapons, and hope to an island under siege. The Battle of the Atlantic became the longest continuous campaign of the war, lasting nearly 6 years. More than 3,500 Allied merchant ships were sunk, and tens of thousands of sailors never returned home. Yet the Royal Navy adapted once again. Escort carriers, radar, sonar, code breaking, and coordinated convoy tactics gradually shifted the balance. Britain's sea lanes remained open, making Allied victory possible. But success came at a staggering cost. Hundreds of warships had been lost or damaged, thousands of experienced sailors were gone, and Britain's economy had been pushed to its limits. When peace arrived in 1945, the world that had sustained British naval supremacy no longer existed. The United States emerged with the world's largest economy, the most powerful navy, and an industrial capacity unlike anything seen before. Aircraft carriers, not battleships, had become the decisive instruments of sea power. Naval aviation, guided missiles, nuclear submarines, and eventually ballistic missile technology transformed maritime warfare faster than any previous revolution. At the same time, Britain's empire began to dissolve. India gained independence in 1947, and over the following decades, colonies across Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean followed. As imperial responsibilities disappeared, so too did many of the strategic reasons for maintaining an enormous global fleet. The Royal Navy had been built to protect worldwide trade routes and imperial possessions. Without the empire, its mission fundamentally changed. Economic reality forced difficult decisions. Shipbuilding programs were reduced, overseas naval bases closed, and fleet sizes steadily declined. At the same time, each new generation of warships became increasingly sophisticated and increasingly expensive. Maintaining numerical superiority was no longer possible. The 1956 Suez Crisis revealed just how dramatically global power had shifted. Britain and France launched military operations to regain control of the Suez Canal after its nationalization by Egypt. Militarily, the operation achieved several objectives. Politically, it became a disaster. Under intense pressure from both the United States and the Soviet Union, Britain was forced to withdraw. The message echoed around the world. Britain could still deploy formidable naval power, but it could no longer shape global events alone. From that moment forward, The Royal Navy increasingly transformed from the fleet of a global empire into the fleet of a close ally within a broader Western alliance. Even during moments of renewed success, the change was unmistakable. In 1982, during the Falklands War, the Royal Navy sailed nearly 8,000 miles to retake British territory from Argentina. It achieved a remarkable victory under extraordinarily difficult circumstances, proving that its professionalism, courage, and fighting spirit remained intact. Yet the campaign also exposed how narrow the margin had become. Several ships were lost, modern missiles inflicted devastating damage, and logistical challenges underscored the limits of Britain's reduced naval resources. The Royal Navy's decline was never a story of incompetence or military failure. Its sailors continued to serve with distinction. Its officers continued to innovate. History itself had simply changed. Industrial leadership shifted across the Atlantic. Empires gave way to independent nations. Technology evolved faster than any single country could dominate indefinitely. The institution that had once ruled every ocean gradually accepted a new role, not because it forgot how to command the sea, but because the world no longer revolved around a single maritime empire. Although its era of unquestioned supremacy has passed, the Royal Navy's influence remains woven into the modern world in ways that are often overlooked. Many of today's principles of naval professionalism, officer training, logistics, global deployment, and maritime strategy trace their roots to systems refined over centuries of British experience. The sea lanes that carry nearly 90% of global trade still follow many of the routes secured during Britain's age of naval dominance. Naval traditions practiced from Canada to Australia, from India to Singapore, continue to reflect its enduring influence. Today's Royal Navy is far smaller than the fleet that once patrolled every ocean, yet it remains one of the world's most capable maritime forces. Modern aircraft carriers, nuclear-powered submarines, advanced destroyers, and highly trained sailors continue to protect Britain's interests while operating alongside allies across the globe. Its mission has changed, but its commitment to the sea has not. The story of the Royal Navy is ultimately about more than ships, admirals, or battles. It is a reminder that no position of dominance is permanent. Every empire, every technology, and every military advantage exists within a world that never stops changing. Success creates confidence. Confidence builds power. Power reshapes history. But history eventually reshapes power in return. For more than 4 centuries, the Royal Navy carried a nation from the edge of Europe to the center of world affairs. It defended an island, connected continents, protected commerce, and influenced the lives of billions across generations. Few institutions have left such a profound mark on human history. The oceans remain as vast as ever, their tides still rising and falling with quiet certainty. A timeless reminder that while nations may command the sea for a generation or even for centuries, no power can command the tide forever.